Okay, just for orientation, if you continue this way, you're going to end up in Hughes Court and carry on to Homestead. And it's about this time next year, you'll be able to continue into the city of Pittsburgh whenever the trail's completed. If you continue this way, we're going to go to West Newton today, but you also could continue on to Cumberland, Maryland, and eventually to Washington, D.C. So that's the location, but this is said to be one of the most haunted spots on the Great Allegheny Passage. This presently is this is Allegheny County's largest.
You missed it.
This is Allegheny County's largest privately protected land. It was acquired in the mid-90s by the Allegheny Land Trust, and was acquired because there's a really diverse ecology here, a variety of wildlife, so those are the reasons that this property was acquired and protected. It does, however, have a storied past. Obviously, the Dead Man's Hollow name comes from a lot of, there are a lot of different stories out there, and I have an article which I'm going to just sort of go through a few of the stories that have been reported. And I wanted to say first that even though this is a quiet, scenic setting, this once was a thriving industrial area. A century ago, there was a sewer pipe plant, and if you continue into the hollow, you may be able to see some some remnants of that industry. There also were 2 brickworks and oil and gas wells here on this site, and there were residents as well in this 400 acres. So you guys will like this. In this article, it says that some locals say a ghost makes its presence felt in the hollow each autumn. There are stories of rustling sounds among the fallen leaves with no one present, and other unexplained noises. I heard some rustling sounds while we were biking. Crunch, crunch of the leaves. There's a woman named Karen Frank who was writing a book on the hollow, and a lot of this information comes from her, a lot of the research of old newspaper articles. She says that at least 4 deaths have occurred here over the last 125 years, and I'm going to tell you about those. In 1874, this is the first instance that was reported. A group of boys found a man hanging from a tree limb in the woods, and a newspaper article at that time said that the person had been brutally murdered, and some had said that it was backwoods justice. Some had said that it may have been the KKK. The case was never solved, and there are stories from residents in this area that sometimes that the ghost of the man can be seen hanging from a tree.
What tree?
No idea. This is a large site. So keep your eyes out. Anyhow, some people say that the dead man actually was a woman, but then again, Dead Woman's Hollow doesn't tend to have much of a ring to it. Another story was of 1881, whenever 3 men robbed a McKeesport General Store. The store was owned by a man named Robert McClure. And so McClure gathered up his posse of 20 or so men. If you can imagine in 1881, that's what you would do. And so he gathered his posse and they entered the hollow searching for the men. They did find the loot hidden in a tree. They didn't happen to find the 3 men at the time. But during the pursuit of the robbers, McClure, who owned the general store, was shot and killed. So some people say that the ghost of McClure is here in the hollow. 7 years later, though, one of those 3 robbers was convicted and charged with the murder, and he proclaimed his innocence to the end. And the story is that whenever he was to be hanged, he said, "Goodbye, all you murderers." So some yet say that the ghost of McConkie, the guy that was hanged for the crime, is here in the hollow. There's another. In 1887, a man named Edward Woods drowned in the Yawk River after crossing on the McClure Ferry. So this McClure family keeps coming up here in the hollow. His hat was found near the entrance to the hollow, and his death was ruled an accident. However, some believe there were suspicious circumstances leading to his death. And then another one that was reported was in 1905, so now we're into the next century, and this one is an industrial accident. A gentleman named Mike Sacco was an employee of the Bowman Brick Plant, and he was crushed between an elevator and the 3rd floor of the brickworks, and there were no witnesses to the accident. So those are some of the most known incidents here in the hollow. There are a lot of undocumented stories as well. There's another story of 2 Clareton bank robbers who robbed a bank. They split up, they met back in the hollow to split up the loot, and one guy shot the other. So those things don't usually ever go well. So anyhow, another one, there's a gentleman who lived in Liberty, and he was born here in the hollow in 1936. Are you all familiar with the St. Patrick's Day flood of 36? The flood caused his family and the other 3 families living in the hollow at the time. So there were only 4 residences here in 1936. The flood, obviously the river came up over the banks and caused the families to have to vacate the hollow. And his mother later and his aunt drowned in the river. This wasn't during the St. Patrick's Day flood. This is in another year, but a storm developed and capsized the boat. There isn't any story about whether or not they are dead women of the hollow. But this gentleman did say that he was taunted and scared by a neighbor growing up who would tell him that whenever the moon comes out at night, he could hear a baby crying in the woods for the hanged man. So that's another local legend, and that was enough for him to never go into the woods at night. And finally, I just wanted to tell you that there is a story of a Loch Ness monster here in the hollow. This is the Monongahela River, and so story of the Loch Ness monster here. And there was a newspaper article in the late 1800s about a monster snake rearing its head from the river. And the story said that the snake was 30 to 40 feet long with a head of 2 to 3 feet in circumference. And I don't know what this means, but when the man saw it, he swooned. The quote. So anyhow, so today, whenever we're making our way back, sort of keep your eye on the river for any, Loch Ness, and keep your eye on the woods as well.
You can save us.
The woman, the historian, Ms. Frank, said that there are still many moonshine spills here in the hollow, which I thought was really quite interesting, that could be possible, that there might be remnants of that activity. And then finally, you would appreciate as Venture Outdoors participants that she and her husband live in this area and are experienced outdoor explorers in her own words, but she says that there are often different sounds here in the woods that can't be explained. And a final quote from her: "We hear sounds that we can't identify. We know that's a deer, that's a possum. Sometimes we hear things we just can't explain."
Supposedly by April 14th.
Is that where the end is at Tancastle?
No, it's from the Point State Park. And then the fountain's been being refurbished, and that's supposed to be completed.
For years.
Well, yeah, but then he started the work. It all comes down to money.
Yeah.
But that's supposed to be completed sometime in, I want to say, early summer.
Okay, so we're here at the Draveau Cemetery, and this was also once the site of the Draveau Methodist Church. We are in Draveau. That's the municipality that we're in. The church was built here along the rail line. So you guys know that the trail is on the former rail line. So the church was here. The cemetery was built behind it. The church was built in 1824, and the church burned down twice. Any guesses as to why?
Ghosts.
That would be a good guess today. Any others? Any guesses why the church burned 2 times?
It was haunted.
That's a good guess.
Embers from
Insurance.
the trains?
Yes, sparks from the passing trains. So it burned once, they built it again, it burned again in 1920. They decided not to build a church again here at this location.
They got the clue.
Another thing I wanted to mention, have you all seen these concrete mile markers? Those are remnants from the railroads. So there are tall, skinny mile markers that are put in by the Great Allegheny Passage here. That one's really kind of dirty and messed up. But the concrete ones were from the railroad. Okay, so I wanted to ask, provide a little bit of extra information about the cemetery, but first I want to ask you, any sense or guesses of how many grave sites there are here at Trevose Cemetery? 100?
Marked or unmarked?
What's that?
Marked or unmarked?
Total.
I know how many dead people are buried there.
Oh, you do? Well, this is what I have. I have that there are 81 identified, 708 grave sites total.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
708.
On somebody dead?
Yeah, probably.
708 is what I have.
How big criminal? Did they come out with a ground radar type thing?
How do they know?
Yeah.
I don't know. This was managed by the church, and then it was handed over at a certain time to the local historical society. So, yeah, records, church records probably. Okay, so just a little bit more about the cemetery. There are 9 Civil War veterans here in the cemetery. There's also one veteran from the War of 1812. I believe that 1812 is the earliest grave site here. You're going to have the opportunity to walk around and look a bit. There are a lot of young children buried here in the cemetery, and that, is evidence of childhood diseases of, the 19th century. And just 2 or 3 things I have for you in terms of the haunted theme. We don't have quite the same stories that we do, in Dead Man's Hollow, but there is a story locally of a 2-headed dog. I think that we should be safe today because I think that dog probably only rears its heads at night. Also, there's a story of a train wreck that may have occurred near the cemetery in the last century, and along with that goes that you can sometimes at night see and hear a ghost train at this location. Another one that I wanted to mention, in the 1970s, apparently there was a fraternity, I'm not sure which university or college, that there was this hazing incident here, and actually across the trail, and basically the fraternity brothers had the pledges dig their own graves and actually put them in some rustic boxes and threw some dirt onto them. And the story is that the pledges were able to make their way out on their own without any help or without any police intervention. So I guess that was in the days that those kind of things could happen to pledges.
They weren't cell phoning anybody that come rescue them.
And I think I saw some kind of a, CSI show or something like with that theme. So anyway, why don't you guys just take a few minutes to walk around and check out the cemetery, and then we'll be on.